All right. We'll get into the colon. I said prior, the colon is primarily for absorption of water to compact feces. Maybe absorb something like fat-soluble vitamins, but most of the absorption has been accomplished already by the small intestine. So what you got, well, what I would do first is look for the end of the ileum on this picture and see if you can find it. Where the ileum ends, there are these little lips. They call them labrum here. There's the end of the ileum. There it is down there. And what you see is called the ileocecal valve, where the foodstuff enters the first part of the colon or large intestine. Think of the cecum as the first part of the ascending colon. The parts of the colon are named how foodstuff is being moved along. It will ascend up the ascending colon from the cecum. The cecum is a pouch with an appendage called the vermiform appendix. Commonly known as the appendix, but the full anatomy name is vermiform, not veriform. People want to call it veriform. Veriform doesn't mean anything, but vermiform means something, because vermis means worm shaped like a worm. And so the vermiform appendix does have a worm shape. The function people are unsure of, it's basically lymph tissue. Appendicitis is when it becomes clogged with the fecal matter at the cecum, and it strangulates the blood flow, and that is kind of what needs to be removed, the inflammation in appendicitis before it bursts. So know the ileocecal valve. I'll write that. That's something to know. So it ends by the cecum. So we have ileocecal valve. Think of it as a valve where you go from ileum to large intestine. Okay, so I'll just list that as a structure to know. But the cecum is just the pouch, and then it goes up the ascending colon. And if you look at the appearance of all the large intestine, what you're going to have, we can't see because it cut it away. The longitudinal band is usually a full layer around. However, it's reduced to 3 ribbons. You can see one here, or one here. It's called the tinea coli, this term here. So let me write that down. Longitudinal layer of muscularis externa is reduced to 3 ribbon-like structures. There's various spellings, tinea coli. That's the name of it. And when they contract, they kind of give that pocketed appearance of the large intestine. The pockets have names. Where's the term? Hostra. There's a term there. term ostra, that's plural, refers to the pockets, the segmented appearance of the large intestine. Okay. So when you proceed from cecum, let me erase the board again. As I'm erasing, let's back up review. Stomach, intra or retro peritoneal. Intra. Duodenum goes retro, and then the jejunum pops back intra, ileum's intra, and then you get to the ascending colon. It's for the most part retro. You get to the top and there's a flexure by the liver. So you can call it the right colic flexure as it's labeled here, or the hepatic flexure. It's on the right side. So I'll put hepatic in parentheses because it's also called hepatic flexure. Well, anyways, the transverse colon runs transversely. When you get to the transverse colon, you're back to intraperitoneal. There's some notes on the transverse colon. It's the longest segment, about 45 seconds long. It's pretty much following the greater curvature of the stomach, which is why it has that kind of sagging appearance. Now the transverse colon is intraperitoneal. And I also mentioned the transverse mesocolon, which anchors it to the back body wall. Now they cut away the greater omentum that's attached to it. Also recall that the stomach has the greater omentum, which goes from the greater curvature of the stomach to here. In addition to the transverse mesocolon, which anchors to the back body wall. That was all previously taught. I just want to go through the parts of the colon here. And then you have this bend by the spleen on the left side. Call it the left colic flexure or splenic flexure. And then you go back to retro. And then you descend down the descending colon. Well, I should write retro under descending colon, not above it. Sorry. So I was saying that the descending colon is retro. And then I was going to say that, no, I wasn't going to say anything else after that. You descend retro, not around the other side, okay? And then you kind of start to take this S-shaped turn, and that's called the sigmoid colon. And we're retroperitoneal from here on out. Now, if you look, when you get towards the rectum anus, the tinea coli cease being three little bands, and you lose it, and you restore the full layer of longitudinal layer of muscularis mucosa. That's why the pockets go away, because you lose you restore the full layer, and you get to rectum anus. Okay, that's it. That's the colon. Let's look at some pictures here. Well, we have them modeled in the room, and you can study them. this transverse colon, there's a greater momentum. You can kind of see bits of the large intestine here. What do you think that white band is supposed to be? 526. Yeah, the tinea coli. Well, you can study it. There's a picture of the rectum anus. I already talked about that, but I did mention yesterday the external anal sphincter. That's the one you can control with conscious thought. The internal sphincter is smooth muscle. So as the rectum swells, it contracts and pushes the feces down towards the anal canal, provides the sensation that you gotta go. Okay. Now this rectum has an ability to hold a lot of feces. I saw a cadaver where I thought the person was impregnated, but we open it up and it's the rectum. Like, what the heck happened? We don't know. I mean, it's not like the family members there to tell us. But that was an interesting thing to see. I'd never seen that before or since. Now I want to talk about the blood supply to the colon and to the small intestine. So we'll get into superior and inferior mesenteric arteries. Now, I've already mentioned the superior mesenteric artery is crossing over the duodenum here. What this picture is trying to show you is there are many branches that provide blood to ileum jejunum. Let me write this down here.
Is that blue one superior mesenteric artery or vein? Is that supposed to be pointing to the red one?
Yeah.
So the red one's the artery.
That is correct. So know the blood supply for these. Supplies blood to jejunum, ileum, and pretty much most of the colon all the way up to the left colic flexure. So the picture should help you learn that. Here's a schematic that's kind of easier to look at. They don't show where it branches off, but you can kind of see it goes off to the right. And it gives off many branches supplying blood to the ileum jejunum ileum. And then supplying blood all the way up here, all the way over here to the left colic flexure. There's a model we have in the room. There's that same SMA right there. Okay? And they cut off all the little branches there, but they do show how it supplies blood all the way up to there. Okay. Now I took another picture of the model. This model is this same model, but the intestines fit in this space, and I just kind of put them in there. If you look on the back of this, they have all these. I noticed all these little cut red ones and blue ones. Those are the cut branches of SMA. So it's not SMA as I've labeled it. It's really the branches of it, but you don't have to know the names of the branches. Those match with those. Okay, so if you work with the model in the room, they match with it. So this is a front view. Again, this is looking on the back view. You should be able to identify the branches of SMA there. You should be able to see that these cut branches match with those. The inferior mesenteric artery supplies blood to the rest of the colon. So pretty much from left colic flexure on down, the rest. say rest of, we call it the distal colon. Well, anyways, the SMA goes off to the right. You can kind of see how the inferior mesenteric goes off to the left because this is the left side. You'll see that in our cadaver. So this is, well, one way you can not confuse them. If you can see both, well, you know the one on top is the superior. But remember the landmark. Identify. Duodenum. This goes over the duodenum. If you see the split in the common iliacs and it's right above it, you know it's the inferior one. If you're close to the termination, inferior. If you're above and you're crossing over the duodenum, it's the superior one. So in this illustration, they just kind of show the blood supply to the colon all the way up to approximately left colic flexure. And this one, get the rest. More pictures. Okay, this is the SMA. You can see the IMA right there. Right, just to match it with that picture there. I'll show you on the cadaver as well. On this model, again, use your landmarks. If you see the duodenum, and you see an artery going over it, it's superior. The other one, if you, well, I can't remember what that is, just look at what it's supplying blood to, right? All right, so let's talk about this thing. I'm going to skip to this picture. They all show kind of the same thing. So this is really the picture that I think I like to teach from. This is the portal circulation. And so I had a slide that said first pass. Intestinal blood. Well, portal circulation is that blood must first pass, quote unquote, through the liver before it goes back to regular systemic circulation. Portal blood must, quote unquote, first pass through liver. And so this kind of illustrates it. So what you see there is, you see the inferior mesenteric artery, superior mesenteric artery, and vein. Let's just focus on the veins for this picture. So superior mesenteric vein, inferior mesenteric vein, and then you have splenic vein over here. So think about this. These three vessels from the spleen and the superior inferior mesenteric veins, those are draining the spleen and all the intestines basically. So they're collecting a lot of blood. And how they all funnel together is these two meet. And this represents, well, what we said before, the hepatic portal vein, or just portal vein. Now, I've already told you to distinguish portal vein from hepatic vein, and this figure does a good job. For the portal vein, blood's going in. For the hepatic vein, blood's going out. You first pass through the liver before you get back to the general systemic circulation. So I want to shift gears to the histology, and I just kind of cut right to the histology slides that I posted.